Oh, give me 1 second. There's nobody here yet. Just please be patient. My thing is already live. I don't even want to be. Hold on, Doc. I'm so sorry. If there's anybody here waiting, my apologies. I had to go get that phone out of here. Forget that freaking surveillance team. Oh, goodness gracious. People don't even have a clue what I go through. Let's see how long this chapter is. Very long. Oh, there's only 3 chapters in the whole book. Are you kidding me? No. Let's just read we'll read about 30 pages or so. Hello and welcome. We'll just see, we're on page 92, so we'll just see how far we get. I'm about exhausted trying to work around their stuff. Freaking jerks. You guys, I am so glad I have you guys because you guys lift me up too. It's unbelievable what we get through. Us who are high profile and out in the public trying to tell everybody hello. We're going to continue here with the Anuna, the eagle, and serpent, and Deluge. I would like to start this chapter by citing an important quote from Manly P. Hall, which helps to exemplify the importance of symbolism to history. When the human race learns to read the language of symbolism, if you guys haven't seen the Da Vinci Code, amazing. And that has a lot to do with symbolism. A great veil will fall from the eyes of men. They shall then know truth. And more than that, they shall realize that from the beginning, truth has been in the world unrecognized, save by a small but gradually increasing number appointed by the lords of dawn as ministers to the needs of human creatures struggling to regain their consciousness of divinity. After years of extensively studying the specific symbolism found within ancient murals, cylinder seals and flags, and crests around the planet, it has become clear to me that the eagle and serpent represent far more than what we've been told. On the highest level, this struggle represents the eternal conflict that exists within mankind over whether it will continue to be blinded by the illusions of the physical world through the means of war, distraction, and material gain, or discover the secrets of consciousness and embrace the essence of their spiritual nature. This war is being fought over in both the higher and lower dimensions by the Anunnaki as well as other beings, which is then manifested down into the 3rd dimension of our reality. Hence the term, as above, so below. You may be asking yourself, what is the evidence that shows this is real and not simply just a representation of the various human archetypes? Over the course of this chapter, I will be presenting you with extensive evidence that supports these theories. Before we go any further, the first point that must be understood about this struggle is that it only exists due to the universal law of free will. Mortal man is governed by certain laws and rules, such as free will, which allows each of us to choose whatever decisions we want, both mentally and physically. These decisions determine our ultimate path in life. This conflict of interest within mankind led the Anuna to become split apart into 2 distinct factions, represented by either the eagle or the serpent. In many ways, these symbols can also be equated to the properties of darkness and light, good or evil, and knowledge versus ignorance. Due to the properties of free will, changes to consciousness, and the unpredictability of human emotions, each person has the potential to change their mind at any time, and often without logical reason. This became one of the great challenges for some of the Anunnaki as they attempted to manage how we perceive reality. After reviewing the specific symbolism and mentality that has dominated human societies for the last 2,000 years, the unfortunate conclusion one would logically have to come to is that the influences of the serpent have seemingly lost the struggle here. But the real question is, for how long? In order to better understand this eternal struggle found with the Anuna, as well as what lies ahead for our future, we may need to travel back through the events of history by objectively following the breadcrumb trail of evidence. According to Mesopotamian cuneiform tablets, hundreds of thousands of years ago, a great rivalry emerged between the Anunnaki half-brothers of all, which was Enki, E-A, however you say that word, that name, and Enlil, Enlil, along with the various offspring each of them had. Their differing mentalities towards mankind created tense competition and chaos on the planet due to this ongoing war in the heavens. Eventually, a decision was made by their elder leader, Anu, A-N-U, to separate this family feud by designating each of them to rule over certain territories and domains on the earth. That's the reason why these symbols can be found in so many different cultures across the world. Because Enki was known as the spiritual healer, magician, intellectual, and balancer of energy for the Anuna. He was designated as ruler of the Abzu, A-B-Z-U, which included the freshwater oceans and underworld, or E-A, however you say that again, E-A, or Inky, as he was later known. So I'm just going to keep saying Inky, so I don't have to keep saying that word, and it's really kind of silly to have two names and create confusion. So I'm just going to go ahead and do it that way. He was designated as ruler of the non-physical world, which meant balancing the energies of the earth along with the conscious and spiritual levels of mankind. His symbols became the serpent and dragon, which represented knowledge, wisdom, and eternal balance. This legacy of wisdom left behind by Enki and Thoth can still be seen today through the medical caduceus symbol, which can be found on most ambulances and hospitals. Despite the demonization and inversion that occurred to the serpent over time, we must always remember how it was originally represented by ancient civilizations and mystery schools of antiquity. In fact, the word Nagas was often used in India and Southeast Asia to describe the various adept masters, or rishi, I don't know if that's R-I-S-H-I, who sought to acquire higher knowledge for achieving greater states of awareness. The term Nagas fully translates to mean serpent worshippers, which can be traced back to the origins of early Gnosticism, Hinduism, and Buddhism. These rishi were also referred to as seers, sages, or mystics, who closely followed the serpent teachings that had been passed down from long ago from the civilizations of Atlantis and pre-dynastic Egypt. The Druids of Ireland, Scotland, and England also believed that the symbol of the serpent represented the ultimate balance of knowledge, energy, and spirituality. Hold on, let me scooch this up a little bit. Scoot that in. That's the reason why they were eventually eradicated from the region by St. Patrick, who referred to them as the snakes. When you consider the fact that pure light represents the combination of all 7 colors of the visible light spectrum, it helps to connect and explain why we find statues across India and Asia that portray a snake with 7 heads. Not to mention, excuse me, not to mention that one of the most famous secret societies in all of history was known as the Brotherhood of the Snake. Going deeper, the philosopher Plato describes Atlantis as being a landmass that contained 7 principal islands. Considering that all these sacred cultures worshipped the teachings of the serpent and light, it's clear that this was no accident. The Egyptians even claim that they were the direct descendants of the people of Atlantis, who, according to Thoth, traveled to the land of Khem, Khem, to rebuild their society and protect this important knowledge after cataclysms destroyed their home. The reason Plato knew so much about Atlantis was from studying these ancient records. Just like the Atlanteans, the Egyptians also worshipped the symbol of the serpent, which was commonly shown coiled above the crowns of great pharaohs and depicted in many of their murals. Further east in Asia, the serpent was extensively worshipped, but in a slightly different way than in Egypt and India. Instead of the symbol of the snake, it was depicted as a dragon, which represented the metamorphosis of the serpent into its highest form. This common theme of transformation is best seen in the Maya, Aztec, and Inca cultures of the Americas, where the wisdom bringers from Atlantis influenced the gods of Kukulkan, Quetzalcoatl, and Viracocha, Viracocha. That is in one of my Earth Warrior cards. Absolutely, it is. All of these names translate to mean plumed or feathered serpents. In many ways, all reference the same thing. That is why, throughout history, nearly every civilization that based itself on acquiring wisdom and higher knowledge was represented by the serpent and the dragon. Sadly, over time, these sacred symbols were eventually demonized by the church and inverted to their opposite meaning. Along with the cultures of the Americas, this common theme showing the transformation of human consciousness was also echoed thousands of miles away by the Egyptians, who portrayed this important knowledge in murals as coiled serpents with wings. That's the reason why the medical caduceus symbol still shows the coiled serpent with wings at the top, to represent achieving optimal health in the body. This is a necessary component when seeking to maintain higher states of consciousness and energy. Quickly, you begin to recognize that all of this knowledge is interconnected across countless cultures on the planet, spanning entire continents and oceans, who all share these common influences from the past. As Manly P. Hall eloquently stated, much of this knowledge has been cleverly hidden within complex metaphors and symbols that patiently wait for a time when the collective of humanity can once again rediscover these secrets of consciousness and ascension. Manly P. Hall was a brilliant writer and thinker who carried on the great legacy of Hermes by passing along this ancient Egyptian wisdom into the future. To further understand these influences and connections back to the symbol of the serpent and dragon, we must study the Hermetic writings known as The life and teachings of Thoth Hermes Trismegistus. It's Trismegistus. In these important writings, the famous Hermetic tale of Poimandres, Poimandres, helps to clarify both who the great dragon of Poimandres is, along with the identity of the Egyptian god Osiris. Osiris, I don't know how you say that. Osiris. Osiris. The following is a reading from the Poimandres, the vision of Hermes. Following the secret instructions of the temple, Hermes gradually freed his higher consciousness from the bondage of his bodily senses, and thus released his divine nature, revealed to him the mysteries of the transcendental spheres. He beheld a figure, terrible and awe-inspiring. It was the great dragon, with wings stretching across the sky and light streaming in all directions from its body. The great dragon called Hermes by name and asked him why he thus meditated upon the world mystery. Terrified by the spectacle, Hermes prostrated himself before the dragon, beseeching it to reveal its identity. The great creature answered that it was Poimandres, the mind of the universe, the creative intelligence, and the absolute emperor of all. Hermes then besought Poimandres to disclose the nature of the universe. Excuse me, it's that juice. And the constitution of the gods. It's not a juice. It's a shake, a grass shake. Understand, O Hermes, and meditate deeply upon the mystery that which in you sees and hears is not of the earth, but is the word of God incarnate. So it is said that divine light dwells in the midst of mortal darkness, and ignorance cannot divide them. The union of the word and the mind produces that mystery, which is called life. As the darkness without you is divided against itself, so the darkness within you is likewise divided. The light and the fire which rise are the divine man, ascending in the path of the word, and that which fails to ascend is the mortal man, which may not partake of immorality. Learn deeply of the mind and its mysteries, for therein lies the secret of immorality. Let me shut this door. I can't even shut the door when they go back through. Whatever. Hermes asked if all men did not have minds, and the great dragon replied, "Take heed what you say, for I am the mind, the eternal teacher. I am the father of the word, the redeemer of all men, and in the nature of the wise, the word takes flesh. By means of the word, the world is saved. I, Thought, the father of the word, the mind, come only unto men that are holy and good, pure and merciful, and that live piously and religiously. And my presence is an inspiration and a help to them. For when I come, they immediately know all things and adore the universal Father. Before such wise and philosophic ones die, they learn to renounce their senses, knowing that these are the enemies of their immortal souls. I will not permit the evil senses to control the bodies of those who love me, nor will I allow evil emotions and evil thoughts to enter them. I become as a porter or doorkeeper and shut out evil. Hallelujah. Protecting the wise from their own lower nature. But to the wicked, the envious and covetous, I come not, for such cannot understand the mysteries of mind. Therefore, I am unwelcome. I leave them to the avenging demon that they are making in their own souls. For evil each day increases itself and torments man more sharply. And each evil deed adds to the evil deeds that are gone before, until finally evil destroys itself. The punishment of desire is the agony of unfulfillment. Wow, that's pretty powerful. They're destroying their self. Hermes bowed his head in thankfulness to the great dragon who had taught him so much, and begged to hear more concerning the ultimate of the human soul. So Piemondes resumed, at death the material body of man is returned to the elements from which it came, and the invisible divine man ascends to the source from whence he came, namely the eighth sphere. The evil passes to the dwelling place of the demon, and the senses, feelings, desires, and body passions return to their source, namely the seven governors, whose natures in the lower man destroy, but in the invisible spiritual man give life. These profound words from Hermes also echo the same wisdom that's found in the Emerald Tablets, which speaks to the divine and infinite nature of human consciousness. Many secrets are revealed in the vision of Hermes if the reader studies their words carefully and separates the hidden symbols and metaphors. The story of Piemondes begins with Hermes finding himself wandering in a rocky and desolate place, where he allows himself to retreat into deep meditation and prayer. He's in the wilderness, huh? Following the secret instructions of the mystery schools, Hermes frees his higher consciousness from his physical body and is suddenly met by the celestial dragon known as Piemondes, who refers to themselves as the great mind and consciousness of the universe. Is this a reference back to the one true God, also known as the prime creator? This great dragon acts as the final gatekeeper of ascension for human beings based on the moral rules of judgment that were laid down long ago. These moral rules used to judge a human soul upon death were closely followed by Osiris. Is it Osiris or Osiris? In Egypt, who eventually had to assume this role in the underworld. Ordainers of destiny and the underworld. To me, it's clear that Marduk, Thoth, Ninmah, Ninmah, and Enki, along with their various incarnations, have played important roles in mankind's history. However, I will stress that some of them, such as Marduk and Enki, have had to play a more negative and deceptive role during certain time periods due to the laws of balance. Figure 6 below shows a serpent dragon statue of Kukulkan. I don't know how you say that. It's Kukulkan. Kukulkan at Chichen Itza in Mexico. Itzachchen. Notice the striking similarities that can be found in these statues and murals throughout the Aztec, Toltec, and Maya cultures, which shows the strong connections they all had back to a common influence long ago. So there is the statue. No wonder I'm so drawn to the Mayas and the Toltec. I didn't study the Aztecs so much, but that's clearly the dragon. Now you may be wondering, what became of Enki's firstborn son, Marduk, and what was his specific role in our reality? Marduk was a second-generation god of the Anuna who rose in power to become the principal solar deity for the city of Babylon and was later known as Amun, A-M-U-N Ra, R-A, to the ancient Egyptians. Marduk's territory in the north was shared by Enlil and several of his sons, who were considered fierce rivals to him at the time. This resulted in the Assyrian Empire having its capital shared by both the cities of Babylon in the south, which was ruled by Marduk, and Nineveh to the north, largely ruled by Enlil and his son Ninurta. This created intense conflict between the younger and older generation Anunnaki gods, who often created wars over controlling the regions of Mesopotamia, as well as to defend their status and prominence as supreme leaders. This should be seen as one of the major catalysts for why there has historically been so much conflict and turmoil between these cities. Marduk assumed the role as the chief deity for the city of Babylonian, where he was known as Bel, B-E-L. Due to his powerful influence over the region and rivalry with Enlil, Marduk altered many of the ancient texts to portray himself as the supreme leader and hero to mankind. Thank you for the like. In fact, we find significant discrepancies between certain Babylonian versions of the Enuma Elish, where Marduk claims he created the human race instead of his father, Enki. This is an attempt by Marduk to rewrite history in his favor. In many ways, this bitter rivalry seen between Marduk and Enlil represents a much deeper issue that exists between the Anuna, where the younger generation was competing for power over the elders. This rivalry is perhaps best seen in Egypt when Marduk assumed the role of Amun-Ra, with the symbol of the falcon. This choice of a falcon is especially interesting if you consider that Enlil's symbol was an eagle, which is very similar to a falcon. Not familiar, similar. Except that the falcon is considered the fastest bird of all. During a time when these gods were fighting over supremacy of the region, the choice of a falcon is quite a fitting choice, to say the least. That's why Amun-Ra is symbolically shown with the head of a falcon, while Enlil and those loyal to him are historically shown associated with the eagle or one of its many variations. Despite the ongoing dispute between the Anunnaki over power, it seems a shaky alliance was later formed during the reorganization of the Roman Empire, where Marduk and Enlil assumed various roles within some of the Abrahamic religions. At the height of its power, Babylon grew to become one of the largest cities on earth, with a population of over 200,000 and a thriving trading center. The city was built equally divided on either side of the Euphrates River and bound by large defensive walls and gates. Oh, anybody know of any walls going on lately? Babylon was ruled by a long dynasty of bloodline kings, including one of the most influential of all, known as Hammurabi. King Hammurabi came into power after his father died in 1712 BC, leaving him the throne. Hammurabi built Babylon into a powerful military center of the region that would eventually merge and become the great strength of the Assyrian Empire. Hammurabi believed he was the divine and rightful king of Mesopotamia because he received direct instructions from the gods for how to govern over society. These instructions came in the form of a long list of moral laws and rules, which became collectively known as the Code of Hammurabi, and that's Hammurabi. The Code of Hammurabi represents one of the oldest and most significant cuneiform texts ever recovered in Babylon. Yet despite this, most have never even heard of it. The Code of Hammurabi is a large 7.5-foot tall stele, stele, with cuneiform writings that describes 282 laws to follow for bringing stability and morality to mankind. It became a guide that was followed by numerous kings and rulers and was eventually woven into the very fabric of our society. In the preface, it states, when Anu, the sublime king of the Anunnaki, and Bel, the Lord of heaven and earth, who decreed the fate of the land assigned to Marduk, the overruling son of Enki, god of righteousness, dominion over earthly man, that made him great among the Igigi, I-G-I-G-I. They called Babylon by his illustrious name, made it great on earth, and founded an everlasting kingdom in it, whose foundations are laid so solidly as those of heaven and earth. When Anu and Bel called by name me, Hammurabi, the exalted prince, who feared God, to bring about the rule of righteousness in the land, to destroy the wicked and evil doers, so that the strong should not harm the weak, so that I should rule over the black-headed people like Shamash, Shamash, and enlighten the land to further the well-being of mankind. When Marduk sent me to rule over men, to give the protection of the right to the land, I did right and brought about the well-being of the oppressed. Well, what the heck happened to that then? Dagnabbit. This powerful quote not only mentions Anu by name, but also explains the extensive influences that Bel, another name for Marduk, had on Babylon and much of the rest of Mesopotamia. This ancient text, along with the Sumerian kings list, provides some of the most compelling evidence to show where the structure of our society originated from and how certain leaders were chosen to rule over the rest of people. This was done in order to gain new territory in their name, as well as to secure their prominence and legacy. Quotes like these also help to prove that the Anunnaki are real and have played a major role in our past. Notice how Marduk is mentioned as being the Lord of heaven and earth instead of Enlil. Of all the younger generation Anunnaki gods, Marduk seems to play the most complicated role of all, assuming both sides of duality throughout human history. At times, Marduk spread wisdom and higher knowledge, while at other times it seemed he promoted spiritual deceit and the use of black magic. That's why Bel is often associated with the practice of black magic in Babylon. In order to provide balance, the Anuna were divided into playing different roles within our reality, some assuming a positive role, while others a negative, depending on the different time periods. Those who were assigned a negative role largely governed over the age of Aries and Pisces, ruling through a combination of war, promoting false religious doctrines, and by preying upon our basic human urges. As stated previously in the book, this hatred and anger shared by some of the Anunnaki towards mankind stems from the jealousy and anger that arose long ago over the genetic gifts given to the human race, which many of them felt we didn't deserve in the first place. Enlil was designated by Anu as the ruler of the higher realms of Earth, including the third dimension, and as such, oversaw both the activities of the Igigi as well as the human race. Enlil's problem became how to maintain complete control over society, since humans were created for the sole purpose of fulfilling the physical needs of the Anuna here. Enlil felt that mankind needed to be ruled with an iron fist to prevent uprisings and revolts, such as previously seen with the Igigi. The solution that Enlil and others came up with was to create chaos and confusion in our reality for the means of blocking mankind's spiritual ascension and trapping them in the physical world of Ka, K-A. That's why I continuously bring up the importance of understanding who we really are and why each one of us should seek to reach higher levels of consciousness. The main reason that focusing society on material gain, war, and the illusion of Ka is so damaging to our conscious evolutionary path is due to the fact that our true identity is that of a multi-dimensional light being who are simply experiencing a physical reality here until we can grow on a spiritual level. Spiritual beings having a human experience. By keeping humanity distracted by these clever illusions, they're forced to repeat this cycle of incarnation, eternally sacrificing their time and energy. Those are a few of those rulers for how this system works and why some have referred to our reality on Earth as a prison. But is it really a prison? The ancient Gnostics claim that our primitive urges are the source of all misery on the planet, and that an evil being known as Jehovah in the Bible continuously preys on them for the meanings of blocking our spiritual ascension. Since Enlil, who is playing the role of God in this story of Adam and Eve, doesn't want mankind to have the knowledge of a higher consciousness, it should be no surprise then that he assumed this disruptive role in our reality. In Hebrew, Jehovah translates to mean God, and is also considered to be the same being referred to as Yahweh. But is it really God? I would like to strongly point out at this time that Enlil is simply playing the role of God and is not actually affiliated with what I refer to as the prime creator or great architect of the universe. This gives credible evidence to not only suggest that Enlil is playing the role of God in the Bible, but also Jehovah, Yahweh, and I don't know how to say this word, Yaldabaoth. Yaldabaoth. I don't know how to say that. In many ways, the Anunnaki could be considered nothing more than puppets for this powerful and all-seeing prime creator who permits duality as a means of exploring all forms of free will and self-expression. In the end, despite the sheer abundance of evil that still rules our world, The specific laws that were woven into the design of the universe itself mean that the likely outcome will be one of growth and unity rather than chaos and division, which is exactly what's going on. They're creating all these distractions. There's power outages in California now because of the fires, because they got busted creating them. Like, I don't even know. I can't even venture into all that. I started watching just a tiny bit of evolutionary energy arts. I just can't do it. I'm doing enough here, and I can't venture it. There is way too freaking much going on right now. This hidden design can be seen throughout nature and has been echoed by past cultures and secret societies since the very beginning. Mesopotamian cuneiform tablets, such as the Atrahasis, Atrahasis, explain that Enlil was designed by Anu to become an almighty ruler and controller of the skies and upper dimensions of earth. Because of that, his symbol became the eagle. This symbol was also shared by many of the Igigi, the Watchers, which are in the book of Enoch I have back there, along with his son, Ninurta, Ninurta, who later became associated with Byzantine. That sounds like some cream you put on. Byzantine, a double-headed eagle of the Roman Empire. Ooh, wait. These gods of war were responsible for the creation of powerful empires who systematically conquered the serpent dragon civilizations of antiquity, nearly eradicating any evidence of their existence and polluting their teachings. That's how so many of our most important symbols that lead back to achieving higher states of consciousness and spirituality eventually become demonized and inverted over time. This struggle of the eagle and serpent has been seen by many academics as merely symbolic and not actually representing real beings. To me, this thought process represents a linear way of thinking by ignoring the extensive evidence that exists, showing the influence that these beings had on cultures across the world, who were sometimes separated by vast oceans and great distances. The chance that these similarities could have occurred naturally across all these civilizations with no outside intervention is nearly impossible, in my opinion, and in many ways illogical. The task of the objective researcher seeking the truth should always be to follow the evidence wherever it leads and never allow predetermined conclusions to cloud one's judgment. Enlil's half-brother and polar opposite was known as Enki to the Babylonians, as Ea to the Babylonians and Enki to the Sumerians, which translates to mean Lord of the Earth. This title helps to show the particular role that he played here. Enki was represented by four primary symbols throughout history: the serpent dragon, caduceus, fish, and the life force of fresh water. The use of these symbols varied based on the time period, as well as which specific role he was playing at the time. In ancient Mesopotamia, Enki was frequently portrayed as an aquatic fish being known as Oannes. Oannes? I don't know, it's Oannes. It's fascinating to learn that this same representation can also be seen in Mali, Africa, Mali, Mali, with the Dogon tribe, Dogon, and the beings referred to as the Nommo, Nommo. When one compares the detailed descriptions and unique fish symbolism shared by both Oannes and Nommo, the evidence becomes almost impossible to refute. Clearly, both Oannes and the Nommo come from the influences of Ea. The historical comparisons and connections for Oz influence in the past. Don't stop there, though. When studying the significance of the religious mitre, is it M-I-T-R-E, mitre, hat worn by the Pope and bishops in the Catholic Church, the similarities are uncanny and clearly point to its origins being linked back to Enki and his role as Oannes during the days of Pisces. This all makes logical sense when you consider that one of Oz' roles and titles here was Lord of the Waters, which is commonly shown in the cylinder seals from Mesopotamia. The use of numerous names and extensive symbols to represent the various influences and incarnations of these beings here is one of the major reasons why they've managed to remain secret and largely hidden from most of society. This is especially true when you consider all the tampering that's gone on with many of these ancient texts over time, as well as the likelihood that some of the Anunnaki left our physical realm long ago, as Thoth states in the Emerald Tablets. These challenges allowed the truth about the Anuna to become nearly lost to history and considered nothing more than a myth by most mainstream experts. That's why learning about this is so important to do right now, since we're living in a time period when this information is both free and readily accessible to most. One of the Anunnaki, the Sumerian gods of Enki, and oh my goodness, it's Ningishzida. I'm not even going to try that one. Were the ones who were most frequently associated with the symbols of the serpent and caduceus. This shows their dedication as eternal teachers for humanity, helping society reach higher states of consciousness and energy. Then this Nin person, Ningishzida, also called Gishzida, that's easier, Gishzida, Ningishzida, I guess is how you'd say it, was assigned to Anu and Enlil to become a guardian and messenger for Enki in the underworld. That's the reason Ningishzida became associated with the role of a teacher and guide, since both he and Enki took great pity on the unbalanced means by which our reality had been designed. Evidence shows that Ningishzida was likely associated with the Atlantean priest Thoth, also called Tehuti, Tehuti, in Egypt, who eventually assumed the role of Kukulkan, Kukulkan, oh my goodness, and Quetzalcoatl in the Americas, and later Hermes to the Greeks. All Hermetic writings are based on this great legacy left behind by Thoth. Oh, it's Thought. Thoth. Thought. It says thought in parentheses. Thought, just like you say I had a thought. That's why Thought was portrayed in ancient Egyptian and African societies with the head of an ibis, I-B-I-S, or ibis, whatever, bird who is commonly shown holding a writing utensil in one hand, symbolizing his eternal dedication as the patient teacher of mankind. Still, even with all these glaring facts that reveal the positive influences that these serpent dragon wisdom bringers had on culture in the past, they would still become demonized as evil by the modern church. Eventually, most of society would also buy into this lie. As I stated previously, most of the Anunnaki became firmly split between two dualistic mentalities, with some focusing on wanting to assist mankind's progression and others wanting to halt and slow it down. This distinction is necessary to point out, as Enki was assigned, or even forced, into ruling the realm of the underworld as a means of maintaining balance there. That is why at times he had to assume a more negative or deceptive role in our reality. It's very important to understand that not all entities or beings that reside in the underworld are benevolent. In fact, according to the writings of the Emerald Tablets, most of them may be quite malevolent toward humanity, playing a significant role in much of the darkness and suffering seen throughout history. Enki was assigned to the underworld to provide balance there, alongside his counterpart, Nergal, Nergal. This means that at times they've both had to play a negative and deceptive role to mankind. Some of the beings and entities that reside in the underworld can be conjured into our reality through the practice of black magic and blood sacrifice, which is why ancient texts describe how certain civilizations eventually became corrupted through its use, such as the Atlanteans, Babylonians, Aztec, and Maya. For those who are interested in learning the difference, a malevolent underworld spirit that was brought to the third dimension by a mortal priest was called Utukku, Utukku, while a benevolent spirit was known as Lamassu, Lamassu. Much of this should begin to make sense when looking at the events of history and the confusion that surrounds the realm referred to as hell. And now, if you followed the four agreements, you will know that the Toltec refer to the earthly realm until you can get out of your mind and learn the four agreements and get out of hell. This is hell already here until you realize, and you can change your mind about that. Enki has been known by many names throughout history, including A-E-A, E-N-K-I-G, Enkig, Nudamund, Oannes, or Ninsiku, and like Ningashita, has played several important incarnation roles here. The most famous of these incarnations can be seen through the Greek god of Poseidon, as well as the Egyptian god Ta, it's P-T-A-H. These various incarnations, names, and titles held by the Anunnaki can be accurately identified by studying the clues left behind in Mesopotamian cuneiform tablets, then separating out the various traits and symbols that each one of them carried. Quickly, you will notice certain similarities and traits that are consistently shared by these beings in nearly every ancient culture. A good example of this can be found with the Greek god of Zeus, known as Enlil in Mesopotamia, where he is frequently portrayed in statues and murals with an eagle perched near or even on him. This type of objective reasoning can also be used to identify the specific influences they each had here in the past. By studying the symbolism found in flags and crests around the world. As I have stated previously, both Enki and Enlil have played major roles in the rise and fall of human civilizations throughout history and should be seen as the primary players competing in this chess match-like game of controlling our reality here. The primary reason these two brothers became so divided is that each of them was given dual ownership of the realm of Earth, but neither shared any common mentalities or viewpoints. Due to these constant disagreements, Enki and Enlil, along with their numerous offspring, commonly referred to as the demigods, became separated into certain factions known as the Inkites, or that's like kite with two eyes though, or the Enlilites. This division created the dualistic struggle that we see today between the eagle and the serpent. Now you may be asking yourself, What is the evidence that shows this struggle is real? Cuneiform tablets state that thousands of years ago, before these two Anunnaki brothers came into our realm, they were known as Al and Enlil. At the time, Enki was referred to as Al because he hadn't officially gained his title and status yet. The reason I'm pointing out this distinction is to show that Enlil had already been given his official title before Enki was ever assigned one. This shows that Enlil's royal status among the Anuna was higher than that of Enki. But why? Evidence indicates that Enki's mother was likely a consort to his father, which meant that his status and ability to govern would always be overshadowed by his half-brother. This represents one of the main reasons why Enki's firstborn son, Marduk, decided to play such a complicated role in our reality, as he realized he would never be able to obtain full royal status within the Anuna due to his bloodline. Because of this, Marduk felt cheated out of his perceived destiny, which is why he often considered himself the ultimate sacrifice and savior to mankind. According to ancient Mesopotamian genealogy records, Enki was a son of the Anuna elder, known as An, A-N, and his mother was called Namu, because Namu was a consort of An, A-N. Enlil was considered next in line to rule over the Anunnaki, because he was in the full bloodline, I suppose. Enlil also held a higher status and title than that of his half-brother Enki. This distinction in title is very important to understand, as it helps to explain why human history has been ruled by so much control, war, and chaos under Enlil's reign, as well as the reason that there has been such a focus on protecting certain bloodlines here. It's by no means a coincidence, then, that many of the most powerful monarchies and elite family dynasties of the world still remains this status quo here. Let me see how long this is. I couldn't find the chapter break. Lord have mercy. Oh, I just saw the words, the Holy Roman Empire. And America. Chapter 4, 161. We're only on 113, so we are not going that far. I'll keep reading for a little while, though. We're only at an hour, huh? All right, hold on. Talking about monarchies and elite family dynasties. Due to Enlil's viewpoints of humanity, as well as his status within the council of the Anunnaki, it permitted him and those loyal to him to allow corruption, deception, and war to dominate our reality for thousands of years. Still today, huh? As I stated before, this despicable act was done to block higher consciousness and spiritual ascension within mankind, as well as to attempt to play the role of gods. The only reason you're able to read these words now and not be at risk of torture or being burned at the stake is due to certain laws and freedoms that were finally enacted, which have temporarily allowed this control system to lose its grip here. That's why they go so far as to censor and stop us. That is why this particular time period is so important. These draconian decisions, which are based on a lack of compassion and severe mental psychosis, can be observed within many of the high-ranking military leaders and rulers of the past, who were often used as nothing more than pawns to promote a higher agenda. These kings and rulers were often promised ultimate power in exchange for their blind loyalty and dedication, which unknowingly led to the corruption of their souls in the end. That's the main reason why the symbol of the eagle and phoenix became embraced by so many warring empires of antiquity, while the serpent was eventually conquered and demonized. To better understand which of the Anunnaki brothers influenced the various human cultures and empires across the planet, we need to follow their various names and symbols. The chart below contains a list that each one of these beings may have used over time. For those who are interested, an expanded version of this chart can be found towards the end of this book. So, E-A, I guess that's how you say it, was known in Sumerian as Enki, in Akkadian, Akkadian, as in Persian as Ahura Mazda, Ahuramazda, just like the car. In Greek, Prometheus. In Roman, Neptune. Neptune's in retrograde right now. In Nordic, Odin, Odin. And in Slavic, Veles, Vels, Veles. I don't know if that's how you say that. So Enlil in Sumerian was known as Enlil. In Akkadian was known as Elil, E-L-L-I-L. It's normally E-N-L-I-L. In Persian as A-N-G-R-A, Angra. Manu, M-A-I-N-Y-U. Manu, I don't know. In Greek as Zeus. In Roman as Jupiter. In Nordic as Thor. And in Slavic as Perun, P-E-R-U-N. Perun? I don't know. I'm just a little Midwestern American girl doing the best I can. I would like to strongly point out that evidence exists showing that Enki and Enlil likely played roles in other cultures as well, such as in India and the Americas. Thank you. However, I did not include them in the chart above due to conflicting information and lack of specifics. My goal with this book is accuracy, so I will allow the reader to determine those influences for themselves. The early Aboriginal tribes of Australia referred to Enki as the rainbow snake and claimed that he inhabits the deep oceans and underworld realms of the planet. Enki was considered by them to be one of the greatest creators in all the universe. Pay close attention to that reference, as it also correlates with what Mesopotamia cuneiform tablets say about him. These conclusions make logical sense considering the fact that Enki is mentioned in the Atrasis and Enuma Elish as being creator of mankind, who was responsible for the specific design of the chakra centers in the human body. These chakra centers just so happen to perfectly reflect the vibrational energy of the visible light spectrum. That's why Enki is referred to as the rainbow snake by these Aboriginal tribes of Australia, since the term rainbow is both referencing his connection to the 7 colors of the visible light spectrum, as well as the serpent, meaning his role as a wisdom bringer. I have to go back to TJ Maxx and get this little chakra stone set that I saw yesterday. I didn't get it because I didn't have a whole bunch of money, so I worked for my grandma today, and I'm going back to get it. Something really told me to get it, and I got some hygiene products that I needed instead. These inherent responsibilities given to Enki to manage the energy and soul incarnation cycles on the earth is why he eventually became associated with Osiris in Egypt, due to his specific role as a balancer in the underworld, referred to as the Duat, D-U-A-T, Previously, Enki had assumed the role as a powerful pharaoh in Egypt before his brother Set, S-E-T, which was not listed over here, says also known as Enlil, betrayed him and forced him to eternally rule in the underworld. This famous story is also echoed in the cuneiform tablet known as the Legend of Etana, E-T-A-N-A, along with other ancient texts from around the world. Afterward, Horus, the son of Osiris and Isis, overthrew Set to take back control of Egypt. Now, see, I do believe, as I was doing like mine, of Egypt and rule its pharaoh. When I was doing my Earth Warrior cards, some of these names are in there. And then I would Google them, and it would lead to different things. And it said, like, Osiris and Isis might have been brother and sister. This clearly shows the significance that Egypt represented to the Anuna. The reason Egypt was so important to them was due to its specific location on the planet in relation to electromagnetic energy intersections, known as ley lines. I would like to call it the grid, the energy grid, which is why the Great Pyramids were built there in the first place. Now, we learned about that in the first chapter, I do believe. The responsibilities given to Osiris in the underworld included the weighing a human soul after its death to determine final judgment. This was commonly depicted throughout history as a scale with a feather on one side and a heart on the other. If the human heart, represented through the pure karmic energy of the soul, weighs less than the feather, then it's allowed to ascend and leave this system of incarnation that was created here. To better understand how these various realms of Earth were divided and governed by the Anunnaki, along with the specific symbols they used to represent themselves, we turn to ancient cuneiform tablets known as the Legend of Etana for answers, E-T-A-N-A. Kingship, lost civilizations, and the Great Deluge. The Legend of Etana, also known as the Myth of Etana, is a set of Babylonian cuneiform tablets that provides an important historical perspective for the post-Diluvian time period of Mesopotamia. Etana was considered to be the first king of Kish, K-I-S-H, which was a city located in the Fertile Crescent region of Iraq and Syria. According to the Sumerian Kings list, Kish was the first city on earth that kingship was lowered to after the deluge. The reason the legend of Etana is so important is that it provides a rare glimpse into the historical account of what occurred just after the events of the Epic of Atrahasis. I'm going to have to Google that. Let me write this down. For one, I really would like to know how to. Atrahasis. I don't know how to say that. Atrahassis. This helps to fill in many of the gaps we still have for correctly understanding the timeline of the Younger Dryas period, Dryas, and how it impacted ancient civilizations around the world. These cuneiform tablets represent one of the earliest references ever made for the serpent and eagle, as well as explaining how Enki and Enlil became associated with their particular roles in our reality. The legend of Etana was written in such a way as to hide its true meanings with clever parables and symbolic metaphors. This has caused it and many other cuneiform tablets like it to be largely ignored by most mainstream experts and academics who consider them unimportant to history. However, this couldn't be further from the truth, as you will soon read below. And see, God, Kitsimi, our creator, God, whatever you call it, whatever you call the divine spirit, our creator, literally saw me questioning so much in the Bible that messengers were sent to me in prison to give me universal wisdom and knowledge so that I could discern and read between the lines and discern and seek out the parables and read it. Hallelujah for that I studied so hard. And the things that didn't resonate, I went and searched for more and more and more. Thank you, O divine creator. This has caused it and many other cuneiform tablets like it to be largely ignored by most mainstream experts and academics who consider them unimportant to history. However, this couldn't be further from the truth, as you will soon read below. Tablet 1 of the Legend of Etana, Etana, begins with, they planned a city. The gods laid its foundations. They planned this city, Kish, Kish. The Igigi goes founded its brickwork. Let him be there, the people's shepherd. Let Etana be their architect. The great Anunnaki gods, ordainers of destinies, sat taking their counsel concerning the land, SAT, which it must be one of the gods or demigods or whatever. The creators of the 4 world regions, establishers of all physical form. By command of all of them, the Igigi gods ordained a festival for the people. No king did they establish over the teeming peoples. At that time, no headdress had been assembled, nor crown, nor yet scepter had been set with lapis. No thrown daisies whatsoever had been constructed. Against the inhabited world, they barred the gates. The Igigi gods surrounded the city with ramparts. Ishtar came down from the heavens to seek a shepherd and sought for a king everywhere. Inanna came down from heaven to seek a shepherd and sought for a king everywhere. Enlil examined the D-A-I-S of Etana, the man whom Ishtar steadfastly ... She has constantly sought. Let kingship be established in the land. Let the heart of Kish be joyful. The first tablet of the Legend of Etana describes how the Anunnaki, ordainers of destinies, had to create a new world after the destruction of the old one by relowering kingship to the city of Kish. Etana was chosen to be its architect and ruler, since he was part of the royal bloodline of kings that can be traced all the way back to before the time of Atrasis and Ubara Tutu. As we continue on with the second tablet of the Legend of Etana, pay close attention to the symbolic wording used in regards to the roles played by the serpent and the eagle. Trying to see where a good stopping point would be when we get there. Because it's going to do... Okay, I'm going to stop in I don't know, it's like 10 pages. But it's a good stopping point because there's a headline not breaking up the tablets and then his explanation of it. So it'll be the eagle versus the serpent where we stop. It's still 10 pages. So, well, 9 pages, because this is the last sentence. Tablet 2 of the Legend of Etana states, in the shade of the shrine, a poplar was growing. In its crown, an eagle settled. A serpent settled at its root. Daily, they watched the wind beasts. the eagle made ready to speak, saying to the serpent, "Come, let us make friendship. Let us be comrades, you and I." The serpent made ready to speak, saying to the eagle, "If indeed you desire friendship, let us swear a mighty oath of Shamash. Come then, let us set forth and go up the high mountain to hunt. Let us swear an oath by the netherworld." Before Shamash the warrior, they swore the oath. "Whoever transgresses the limits of Shamash, may Shamash deliver him as an offender to the hands of the executioner." After the eagle's children were grown and were flourishing, the eagle's heart indeed plotted evil. Evil his heart plotted indeed. He set his thoughts upon eating his friend's young. The eagle made ready to speak, saying to its children, "I will eat the serpent's children. Then the serpent will be cast down, and I will go up and dwell in heaven." He descended and ate up the serpent's children. In the evening of the same day, the serpent came, bearing his burden. He looked down, his children were gone. The eagle had gouged the ground with his talon. The cloud of dust from the sky darkened the sky. According to the second tablet of the legend of Etana, the serpent is betrayed by the eagle through his evil trickery and cast down to eternally rule the underworld. At the same time, the eagle travels up to dwell in heaven. To me, these are clear references back to the story of the serpent god of Enki, who are forced to permanently rule in the underworld, also called the Duat, D-U-A-T, or A-B-Z-U, Abzu. At the same time, Enlil, who is represented by the eagle, rules in the higher dimensions of heaven, where he presides over the physical world. This evidence not only supports the internal conflict and division that developed with the Anuna, but also shows that these beings became so advanced that they developed the ability to become non-corporeal, meaning that they could exist without a physical body on an interdimensional level. Just as the Atrasis and Epic of Gilgamesh represent the accounts of the early kings of Mesopotamia, the legend of Etana is also written from the perspective of a king named Etana, who are mentioned in the Sumerian king list as ruling over the city of Kish. Kish is referenced in the Sumerian kings list as being the first city on earth where kingship was relowered to after the deluge swept over. Like Atrasis, King Etana represents one of the great kings of Sumer, but more specifically, he was a part of what's known as the post-Diluvian time period, meaning after the flood. These pre-Diluvian and post-Diluvian civilizations of Mesopotamia are very important to understand and distinguish because they represent two distinct time periods that were separated by great catastrophes. This is why so little evidence remains today from the pre-Diluvian cities of Eridu, E-R-I-D-U, and Bad Tibira, B-A-D-T-I-B-I-R-A, Larag, L-A-R-A-G, and Shuruppak, S-H-U-R-U-P-P-A-K, which became buried and nearly lost to history. In order to more clearly understand these different time periods of the past and the events that led up to the cataclysms at the end of the last ice age, we have to review the climate data from ice core samples from Greenland, geologic evidence from North America, and cuneiform tablets from Mesopotamia. Ancient texts, pyramids, and megalithic ruins provide compelling evidence to show that more than 10,000 years ago, advanced civilizations once thrived from the region of Peru and Bolivia across the ocean to Lebanon, Jordan, Mesopotamia, India, and Egypt, that all disappeared without warning from great catastrophes that occurred across the planet. To fully understand the chronological timeline of these lost civilizations that disappeared between 10,000 and 12,800 years ago, we must study the evidence that's echoed by nearly every major culture of the past. These events, referred to collectively as the cataclysms of the Younger Dryas, DRYAS, wiped out much of what existed before, causing a reset button on human civilizations. This gave rise to the post-Diluvian kingdoms of Mesopotamia, including Uruk, U-R-U-K, Ur, or Kish. The most important thing to understand with these events is that they were caused by a combination of several apocalyptic disasters that all occurred in a relatively short time period, including a destructive solar outburst or comet strike, large earthquakes, and tsunamis, and abrupt climate change. Well, that sounds familiar. Which led to rapid melting of the ice caps, which is exactly what's happening up in Australia. Not Australia, Alaska. All the ice is melting, and even down in Antarctica. As impossible as that may sound to some, there is extensive evidence that exists all around the world that supports these claims. Allow me to explain. Let me scooch up a little bit here. This just got really intriguing, I think. Geologic anomalies seen in the landscapes of Montana, Oregon, and Washington provide compelling evidence to indicate that during the Younger Dryas, rapid melting of the northern ice cap occurred, leading to colossal flooding and mass extinctions of megafauna, F-A-U-N-A, in the region. Just imagine for a moment that you were alive during this event and lived just south of the Canadian border, where there was an ice cap that was 1 to 2 miles deep, just to your north. You would have witnessed thousands of square miles of ice that suddenly, without warning, melted, leading to a torrent of water, ice, and mud across the entire area. The event that caused this disaster was so extreme that it altered the climate of the planet for thousands of years. When you begin to account for the disappearance of so many civilizations from the past, as well as the large extinction seen with many of the land animals of the region, such as the woolly mammoth and saber-toothed tiger, it all begins to correlate and make logical sense. That's why we see such a stark contrast between the advanced pre-Diluvian civilizations and less developed post-Diluvian civilization. Evidence to support this theory can be found when studying each one of these pre-Diluvians. Do you guys need me to stop?
Your shower's leaking down.
Oh. All right. I am probably going to have to stop because the shower is leaking down into the family room. So I'm going to go ahead and put my bookmark here. And we will continue tomorrow. My apologies that we can't have our leaking pipes into the family room. So I love you all so much and have a beautiful night. Because the cordless drill's about to go off. Speaking of flooding,